I'm Megan Skidmore, and welcome to the Beyond the Shadow of Doubt. I'm a woman, daughter, sister, spouse, mother, life coach, and person of faith on a mission to normalize asking questions and allowing doubts on a faith journey and all aspects of life. Join me as I bring this traditionally taboo topic out of the shadows of shame and into the light. I firmly believe we normalize through more talking and engaging in discussion. More talking peels back, exposes, and erases the layers of shame associated with asking questions and allowing doubts. When we are more authentic about our journey, we are more powerful because shame has no power in the face of authenticity. Hopeful Spaces is a Dallas Hope Charities component of Hopeful Discussions, sponsored by Mercedes-Benz Financial Services USA. It's a free monthly parent, ally, or caregiver support group facilitated by Megan Skidmore Coaching. Email chc@dallashopecharities.org for more info. First Friday's free coaching, a confidential group to bring all the questions, vent frustrations, share fears, express doubts. Navigating a new and uncertain reality is hard enough. Let's remove the worry of judgment from others. In this group, I will help you help yourself so that you can be there for your child, family, loved ones, and for you too. Click the link in the show notes to sign up. You must complete the agreement. Welcome, everyone, to the podcast today. I believe this will be the first episode I roll out under my rebranding. I am moving in the direction of focusing on the life and the joy that's on the other side of, that's on the other side of a faith journey, a spiritual journey, when your foundation kind of gets rocked and you start anew. And so, welcome to Living Beyond the Shadow of Doubt. And today I have Jenna Carson with me, and thankfully we made our schedules work and made this interview happen today. So I appreciate that so much, Jenna, and welcome.
Thank you so much, Megan. I'm so happy to have this conversation.
Me too. And I just want everybody listening to be able to soak up all you have to offer. So I'm just going to turn the time over to you. Just give us an intro. Tell us about your background, your story, your origin, where you're from, your family, religion, profession, all those things.
My name is Jenna Carson, and I currently live in Mississippi. I am a chaplain in the United States Air Force, and I'm stationed at Keesler Air Force Base. As a chaplain, I provide spiritual care and counseling for individuals of any or no faith background and any or no faith practice. And I am responsible for helping people during some of the most difficult times of their lives and as they work through some deep questions, whether it's suffering from loss of a loved one or going through suicidal ideation, depression, divorce. As a chaplain, really get to be kind of in the midst of the struggle with people who trust me with their stories, and I love what I do. And before I was an Air Force chaplain, I worked as a chaplain in a prison and before that in a hospital. So I've been fortunate to have different settings where I've provided spiritual care and ministry. And as a chaplain, I also preach and lead worship services for Christians since I am a Christian, so I provide services, which is really interesting as a practicing Latter-day Saint woman, where I don't do that in my own denomination. I, as a chaplain, must do it in my work setting, which I love. And I would say that I kind of grew up all over. My childhood was mostly Kentucky, my teenage years mostly Idaho. Went to college at Brigham Young University in Utah, went to grad school at Harvard in Massachusetts, and worked in Pennsylvania and now Mississippi. So I feel fortunate. I've kind of seen a lot of the US, served an LDS mission in Florida, and speak some Spanish, although I'm very out of practice. And I feel like I've had a strong faith in God since childhood. I think the defining experience of my life, though, starting on a real communion with God was as a young teenager going home. I remember coming home from school one day and just having this burning desire to know for myself. And when I say know, I mean in this language we use in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints of quote knowing like something is true. I wanted that testimony, and so I remember going and kneeling in my closet and shutting the door. And I decided I would be in there as long as I needed to get an answer from God. And I remember praying and asking, God, are you real? Is everything that I've been taught true? Because I was raised LDS, and I just felt this palpable presence of the divine. And from then on, feel like I've had a pretty strong feeling of divine presence throughout the years. Although, of course, always on a spiritual journey, had plenty moments of doubt, still have moments of doubt, and love to embrace all of it.
That is just beautiful. I cannot wait to dive into more of what you've shared. And just like you, I have learned to embrace all of it. It's all one big kind of roller coaster ride, and sometimes there's highs, and sometimes there's really deep lows. And sometimes it's a rush as we're going down, and then sometimes it's a really steep climb that takes a while and requires a lot of energy from us in different ways, trust and belief and those kinds of things. So, caught that you served a mission, caught that you grew up in the LDS faith. Is that the faith of your parents and your grandparents? Like, does it go back for several generations and whatnot?
It does not. My parents both joined the church in their own worlds. They didn't know each other when they were teenagers. And my father's father joined the church, and my mother's mother joined the church. And so, yeah, it was pretty new for my parents, and it brought them a lot of peace and just a different lifestyle than they had
Mhm.
been seeing before. So, yeah, they're converts.
Got it. Okay, so I love to get the kind of overall
Yes.
big picture of a person's background. So
Yes.
thanks for sharing that. I wanted to dig a little deeper. Can you share a little bit more? You said when you were sharing your background story, there are things that you do in your job, in your profession, that you do not do in your faith community.
Hmm.
I'd
Hmm.
like to talk a little bit more about that if you don't mind.
Absolutely. I love
Tell
to
us a
talk
little
about
bit
it.
more about that.
Yeah. Well, I will say that my journey to become a woman minister and still be active in the LDS church has been pretty complex, and
Hmm.
it's been a long journey. So I was in graduate school studying religion, getting a Master of Divinity at Harvard Divinity School when I felt God calling me to ministry. And that's a term frequently used to describe this kind of pressing feeling that a path is correct for you. So when I talk about this call, it's
Yeah.
really just this divine pull towards something. And so I felt the very first semester of my schooling there, of a 3-year program, I felt I am meant to be a chaplain and do this vocation and career. And so I was studying chaplaincy, taking classes on spiritual care and counseling, and felt that it was my path to become a military chaplain, which really surprised me because I had never been interested in joining the military until I felt called to be a chaplain there
Mhm.
and to serve people in a pretty male-dominated setting. Like there are not many women chaplains in the military, and so I thought, wow, this could really be an asset for other women to be able to support them, and also, of course, all genders. But I thought it
Yeah.
would be easy for me just to pursue this path, but I learned that the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints had never allowed a woman to be a military chaplain. And this was in 2015. And so what happened was I proceeded to really advocate for myself, advocate for policy change that would allow me to be a chaplain. Because the first
Mhm.
step in being a chaplain is getting endorsement from a church. And so I had to do this, and it was years later, it was 2021 that I finally got the endorsement. And then in 2022, I joined the military. Is that right? 2021. It might have been 2021 that I joined the military. Anyway, I got in, and along the way, as I mentioned, I had served as a prison chaplain, and in the prison, you're required to preach. And so I had never done that before, but I thought, well, I've given talks in sacrament meeting, and I kind of learned to preach, and I had to because I was offering a non-denominational Protestant worship service. And then in the military, that preaching has even required providing communion at times. And so I just do what is required of me by my job, and I'm in close communication with my endorser at church headquarters. Love my endorser. And he and we've had to have conversations because I've wanted to try things that maybe are outside of the box of what women can do in the church. And he helps me as we try to figure out the guidelines. I had wanted to provide a baptismal service on the day of Pentecost, for example, because that's a pretty common thing to do in a non-denominational
Mm.
worship setting. And I wasn't saying I would have to perform the baptisms. I could get another chaplain to do that if needed. But my endorser said, no, you shouldn't initiate the baptismal service. And so I didn't do it. But it's pretty interesting because I mean, it's new. We're on new territory in our church of what women chaplains can do and what we're permitted to do by our endorser. And we're shaping history. I mean, we're we, meaning myself and Don Dimmick, who is our first Army chaplain, and Sierra Larson also is in the Air Force Reserve. So we're all just learning together.
Okay, so wow, so many things I'd love to dive into here. Uh, so can you help not just me, but our
Yeah.
listeners understand what is you mentioned multiple times that you have certain things that are required for your job, but then
Hmm.
you also are somewhat subject to your endorser, which would
Absolutely.
which would be your church of origin, the elders.
Yeah, yeah. And
What
there's a
is
department at church headquarters with actual people that I talk to at they're running the chaplaincy endorsement for the church. So yeah.
So when you talked about wanting to do the day of baptisms on the
Hmm.
do a baptismal service on the day of Pentecost,
Hmm.
was that something you wanted to provide or something that your superiors in the military inquired about? And
Great question.
was it them who wouldn't allow it to come to pass, or how did that work out?
So what happened was the person who was leading our worship team, and the worship team is responsible for providing the music, so the band and the singers for the service. He had mentioned, we have some people here who would like to get baptized, and I was like, okay. And I was the lead pastor for this worship service on Sundays, and so it was up to me to provide that if that's a need for our people who are coming to church. And so um, let me rephrase. I shouldn't say coming to church, coming to worship service, because we have these different services on base. There's this distinction there. So I just thought, oh yeah, this totally makes sense. And I prayed about it and I was like, oh yeah, like we should offer that. And so I brought it up to my wing chaplain, my boss. And he was the one who very wisely said, have you checked with your endorser? Because, yes, the wing chaplain is going to ask chaplains to provide certain religious rites appropriate to what they are allowed to do by their ecclesiastical body. So, sorry if this is getting complicated, but
No, I'm interested.
it's a dance between making sure the chaplain is only doing what they are permitted to do by the endorser while also
Okay.
providing for the spiritual and religious needs of everyone on base, on the military base. And so my wing chaplain in his deep wisdom said, have you asked your endorser? And because he knows that I'm um, new. This is new for a Latter-day Saint woman. This has not been done
Yeah.
before. And so he was very wise. And that's when I reached out to my endorser, and my endorser said no. Very kindly said no. It wasn't like rude. It was just he pointed out in the chaplaincy handbook a line, and so I realized, okay, Need someone else to organize those. No problem. And it actually turned out no one did want to get baptized at that time. So it worked out. We didn't do the
Mm-hmm.
service, but I just explain all this to, I guess, to show like it is complicated. These
Mm-hmm.
Latter-day Saint chaplains are complicated in the first place because no one knows what to do with us because they're like, are we Protestant or not? Like under the government umbrella, we
Mm-hmm.
technically are categorized as Protestant, but there's also a lot of mistrust of us because we're not typical Protestant. We don't
Mm-hmm.
follow certain creeds and things. And so it's just a lot of figuring out new ground. And I love it. It's
True.
fun. It's exciting. It's scary sometimes because I'm always worrying about misstepping. But
Yeah.
then I'm like, no, God's got it. Like you just follow the Spirit. And the worst I can do is ask. And so that's why I'm always going to ask my endorser. Like if I feel guided to do something, I'll ask. And if they say no, then it's no. And if it's yes, it's yes. And I move forward. But that's the professional responsibility of a chaplain is like you must follow the guidelines of your endorser. So
Mm-hmm.
it's hard sometimes because as a woman, like I don't feel a lot of the constraints that I do in Latter-day Saint Church, like at work. And so there's a lot of cognitive dissonance, but I work through that.
Wow, this is so fascinating. I thank you so much for sharing your experience.
Yeah.
And I love so much that you said God's got it when you worry that you might misstep. I've been through periods of life like that. And so I totally get that. Um, you said that it's a very complex journey coming to becoming a woman minister. I just can't even imagine what your journey has been like. You know, you said it was in the very first semester going to
Hmm.
Harvard Divinity School. I can't believe all of the scholars that are going through Harvard Divinity School these days. It's fantastic. I'm a little jealous. What what was that like when you felt that call, that pull? Like, were you at first just, are you, what? Are you talking to me?
I took some discernment, like, is this me or is this God? But it just always, it was like this loop that would just keep replaying. Like, I would get all these spiritual confirmations and signs from God, like, yeah, keep pushing, keep trying. And in the beginning, I felt really strongly, I am going to do this. Like, I remember in the very beginning, before I even talked to church headquarters, it was a different endorser at the time. It was someone who was a little more closed off to my request.
Mhm.
Well, a lot more closed off.
So when you say endorser, the
Yeah,
umbrella is the church, but there is a specific person that you were in contact with or
exactly. At church
reported to or whatever.
headquarters.
Okay, I
Yeah. And
see.
I had to ask him because the military, before you even apply to join the military, you have to have an endorsement form signed by your church
Hmm.
or other religious organization
Hmm.
or even secular, like a humanist organization. But um, yeah, so
Gotcha.
even before I called him to ask for the endorsement, I had this conversation with this LDS Navy chaplain. And when I told him I wanted to be a military chaplain, he said, well, that will never happen. And I was so frustrated that he said that. Like, that was his first response. That will never happen. And I was like thinking in my head, yes, it will. Like, I knew it would. I had strong conviction that it would. And I'm like, he just doesn't know yet.
You're
Like,
my kind of gal.
thank you. Thank you. And it's so funny. I saw him years later and he looked at me. He was like, you did it. I was like, yeah.
Fantastic.
He didn't say congratulations. He just said you did it. So I still don't know if he's happy that I did it, but that's none of my business. He can have his feelings. I'll have mine.
So let me ask you this, Jenna. You're
Uh-huh.
the first LDS female chaplain in the military.
Military. Yeah. Hmm.
Are you the first female chaplain, though? And Instead of setting New Year's resolutions, I invite you to create vision. Decide what you want, choose what to keep and what to release. Listen to your inner wisdom and then create. Cultivate your mood for 2025. In 1 hour, we will create a digital mood board, kind of like a vision board. It's an opportunity for you to focus on not so much what you do, but instead who you are and who you want to be. Choose to see 2024 for all of the gifts, lessons, and insights it offered. And now choose the mood or the tone you want to cultivate for Set the Mood 2025. Link is in the show notes. If you're not available to join live, please register. All who do will receive a copy of the replay. Go to paperbell.me/Megan-Skidmore.
No, so
Okay. I
we
didn't think
have,
so, but I
yeah,
just
great
wanted to.
question. Yeah, Don Dimmock, Chaplain Don Dimmock, in the Army, she's done great research on the history of LDS women in chaplaincy, and there's a rich history, and it's kind of gone unknown because the women chaplains in the beginning were kind of doing it on their own. This was before church headquarters had this department that was kind of running everything. Like you could kind of do things, I don't want to say under the table, but like you didn't have to go to church headquarters. You could like I don't know. The endorsement process has changed over the years, but we've had women doing it, and Tammy Harris is a big pioneer. She actually works now in the endorsing department. She's an associate endorser at the church, but she was doing it for decades, and she was just kind of quietly going about it without really drawing attention to herself. And I think she just didn't ask permission because she like knew that God had called her to it. And so she just did it. And at one point, she was meeting with Elder Holland and she was like, "Do you know that I'm doing this?" He said, "Oh, yeah, we've known. We know." So, yeah. And
Is
then
she also a chaplain?
she is. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Chaplain Tammy Harris. She's wonderful. So her father was a prison chaplain, and so she had exposure at a young age in the prison, and she
Hmm.
worked a lot with youth in different
That's great.
difficult circumstances. So she's done it for decades. And it was in 2014, I believe, that the church as a whole finally started officially endorsing women for hospital and hospice chaplaincy,
Oh.
all forms of chaplaincy except military. They still weren't letting us do military because the belief was, well, women don't have the priesthood, women can't provide religious rights. There were all these unspoken
Hmm.
reasons why it wasn't allowed. But I, in my pushing for it, never understood why it wasn't allowed. And so I kept pushing and pressing and saying, well, women serve missions, women serve in the temple.
Yeah.
And I just had to really I did not do it eloquently at all. In fact, a lot of times I would kind of just break into tears talking to this person at church headquarters,
Hmm.
but I just could not stop asking. So I asked for years.
So what was the point when the answer was finally yes?
Well, like the reasoning,
Sure.
or
Sure. Whatever comes up for you that you would like to share.
I mean, I finally had asked that endorser at church headquarters. I had said, "Have you prayed about this?" And he admitted that he hadn't. And so I asked him to pray about it. And that was when things really started to change. Like still took a few years, but um, I think there were a lot of factors that came into play. Like I wasn't the only one asking. Don Dimmick had been asking,
Hmm.
and women over the years had called and asked questions. So it was kind of this culmination of like culture changing and then The one endorser retired, and then we had a new endorser, and I think the former endorser really had paved the way because I don't want to like vilify him. I think it was just a very slow cultural change where he had to take the question to different committees, like the Priesthood and Family Committee, and up to the 12. And oh,
Hmm.
and I wrote a letter. This was a pivotal moment. I wrote a letter to President Nelson, and that's when things really kicked off. But I think the point was it was just a cultural practice of not including women, and we needed a prophet, President Nelson, who was willing to make changes and ready and healthy enough to make changes. I think toward the end of President Monson's um, tenure as president, he was very ill, of course, and so there wasn't a lot of change in moment movement. So
Hmm.
I think it just all kind of came together, and finally it was a yes.
That's amazing. I love hearing that, um, kind of that behind the scenes explanation.
Megan, when you talk about pivot points in faith, we talked a
Hmm.
little before we started recording about
Yeah.
self-differentiation and moments of joy and bliss and um, all of these joyful parts of faith along with the struggle in any institution. I think that those struggles that I had with my institution, my church institution, those were the times that I really developed a deep, deep communion with God. Like, because men were telling me no and God was telling me yes. And that was
Mm-hmm.
very different than any experience I had in church, where I understood, well, when men tell me something, I do what they say and I get in line. And so I really had to lean on God and trust in God. And there were moments along the way that I would keep just giving it to Him, like psychologically, I give this to you, God. I don't know what to do. I give it to you. And God paved the way and would tell me when to push and when to step back, when to speak out, and when to stay silent.
Hmm.
And so I just think that like this deep trust has come over me with God and also some distrust with institution because I have had a behind the scenes look at how decisions are made and how ultimately any institution there has to be order and there has to be people with opinions who disagree. And I think that understanding the behind the scenes has helped me like humanize the church experience and be very humble myself because I'm a very flawed individual, like we all are, deeply need the grace of God, like we all do.
Hmm.
And as a minister, I recognize how many mistakes I make every day and just how hard it is to truly show up for people in the right way all the time. And so I guess like as frustrated as I have been in the past with the institution, I also have so much humility because I see in myself like, girl, you're not perfect, and neither are any
Hmm.
of these people running the church, and we're all just trying our best. And so that's where, like, for my faith journey, my loyalty, number one, is to God. Number one is God. Number two is church. And growing up, I didn't know how to differentiate the two. And
Hmm.
now I know. And it's very
Hmm.
freeing. It's very freeing.
Yes, it is. So earlier you talked about experiencing this cognitive dissonance,
Yeah.
um, some constraints in your job. Share with us, how did you work through that to be able to get to this other side where you now experience these moments of bliss, these moments of joy that are just unmistakable, and they let you know this is what I'm supposed to be doing. I have found in these interviews multiple times women or gender fluid individuals, I have gender
Hmm.
fluid individuals on
Hmm.
my podcast as well. They frequently share stories of feeling that inspiration, hearing that inner voice tell them something that is different from what they had been taught growing up, or that leaders had said was the right way to do it, or that they should be doing it. And I recently, for instance, interviewed a same-sex couple, raised
Yeah.
LDS. They did the heterosexual marriage route, and it didn't. work out. They found each other later, and they felt very strongly that's what they were supposed to do,
Yeah.
and didn't experience that, like, it was, if there was a problem with it, it was the onlookers, the people that
Yeah.
weren't a part of their world, that weren't a part of their inner being, right? That they had no inner cognitive unsettled, cognitive
Yes.
dissonance surrounding their feelings. It didn't feel wrong. So anyway, if you could speak to that, like, how do you work through that? And then you get to this other side and you experience something you just didn't know was maybe possible.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I just want to thank you for mentioning that about that couple. And I just want to say I'm so grateful for our LGBTQ plus community in the LDS world because, like, I see so many individuals and couples doing so much important work to educate the rest of, like, those of us who are like cisgender,
Hmm.
heterosexual. Like, I'm so grateful. And I'm just thinking of like Charlie Bird and Ryan. What's Ryan's last name? I don't know. They have this
Clifford. It's Clifford.
Clifford, thank
Clifford,
you.
yeah. Uh-huh.
Clifford, this beautiful marriage, beautiful online presence. I'm just so grateful
Hmm.
for people who handle all the hate. Like, they get so much hate, and I hate that they get that on their social media.
Hmm.
But I've just been in awe and thinking a lot about um, all the people we marginalize in our church and how they're speaking up, and like they don't have to do that. Like, it's not their job to educate the rest of us, but those who feel called to do it, I'm just like, I'm celebrating that. So I just want to say that.
Thank you.
Yeah, yeah, so important. For me, and I just want to acknowledge, like, for me, I just think it's different, right? As a cisgender heterosexual woman, but there's also still challenges, right? So
Hmm.
I don't know, honestly, Megan, like the cognitive dissonance, it's hard. Like, I was so angry. I went to church on Sunday and I was just having one of those days where I was just mad. I was just so mad. Like, oh, I could just feel it. And I just was praying. I was like, Jenna, just be here with people who are loved by God and who you love. Just be with them. And so I was able at church to like feel the love of the community, even as I'm like sitting in the pews thinking like, I'm so frustrated with so many things, so many things. Over the years, I've handled it in different ways. I've spent a lot of time going to other churches, which is so healing, like so healing.
Hmm.
I always have my anchor in Sunday worship service at LDS Church where I'm taking the sacrament. That's always an anchor. I I go to church on Sundays. I often also go to other churches. I go to mass a lot. I was dating a Catholic man for a while, loved going to mass with him. Went to mass for years before I met him, but I find that going to other churches helps put things into perspective for me because every church is flawed. And I haven't yet
Hmm.
found one church that contains all the things I want it to contain, frankly. Like, I just haven't. And I think that's good because it shows me that we're all just trying to do our best.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know if I even answered your question, and we can cut any of this excess. I feel like I'm
No, you're doing
saying a lot.
fantastic. So what has, like, how has that blessed your life? Being able to lean into that, being able to
Oh, yeah.
allow yourself to go there, to go to these places and, sit with that dissonance, sit with the questions, sit with the doubts.
Yeah. Well, it's very freeing. And it can sometimes be a little terrifying because it's like, wait, what's that thing that I thought I knew? Like, we have this
Hmm.
rhetoric in the LDS church of like, quote, knowing, and it's like the deeper in love I am with God, and I truly am in love with God. I'm looking up right now at a picture of Jesus, portrayal of Jesus on my wall. Like, I have such a love for Jesus. He's like, I went through this phase after. a divorce where I seriously wanted to marry Jesus. I'm like, I want to be a nun. Like, I just want to marry Jesus. Um, I just like it's freeing to feel so loved and held by God and just like really find that anchor in God, this being I really don't know. Like I have not had a theophany. I haven't had a tangible face-to-face witness of God. But I just feel this divine presence. And so I think it's very freeing to like to follow what Nephi said when an angel came to him and said, "Do you know the condescension of God?" And Nephi said, "No, but I know that God loves his children." We could say, "I know that God loves her children."
Hmm.
God is love, and that's like the one thing I feel pretty sure about. But the rest of it, I'm like, I'm just asking questions, and people probably don't like to hear that. Like, as a chaplain in the LDS Church, I think other Latter-day Saints sometimes my perception is they want me to like say that I know something. And I'm like, the more that I journey this spiritual path, truly the more I don't know, but it's amazing. Like I was in the Museum of Art in New Orleans and I was with I'm the man I'm dating who's a chemist and he's of course very scientific in his thinking and I just looked at him and I said because we just had this beautiful experience surrounded by this art and I just felt so close to God and I just said though, do you ever like wonder like what if there is no God and does that terror ever like grip you? Like what if just there isn't? And he said, "Yeah, of course I ask that." And I was like, "Oh good, because I asked that too. Even though I feel so close to God, I still have moments where I'm like, "Wait, this is all in my head."
And I think that's normal and natural.
Yes.
I really
Yes.
do.
And I
Hmm.
want to normalize like that. Like I am a chaplain.
Thank you. Me
Again, I
too.
am a minister. I am like I preach God's word and I feel conviction on, when I'm preaching Jesus and I feel so sure of things. And then there are moments where I'm like, what if this is not true? And
Mm.
I just keep coming back to my faith, but but the man that I was talking to on my date, he said, with all of the organization in the universe, with all of this that we have, it would actually be a really low probability that there isn't a creator. And I was like, I love that. Like, and that's how I feel like there's so much order. There is so much order in the universe and I have felt so much order in my communion with God, meaning
Hmm.
I pray and I feel something beyond me. And so I just love that. Like, I love the comfort of that. And that's what I keep coming back to in
Hmm.
all of the doubt and not feeling sure.
That is really beautifully said, very eloquently put. I like that. Um, so anything else that you would like to share with our listeners, leave with them, perhaps pain points about journeying in this space, insights that you've gained, anything you want to leave with them?
I just think God is so big, like so outside of these boxes that our minds create. Like we have to imagine a God, right? We can only imagine God from our own psychological situatedness. And so when we do creative work of imagining God, I would just encourage people to imagine a God who is infinitely better than we could even begin to understand. And I think we need to love ourselves because I think we can't really, let me rephrase this. I could not really feel the love of God until I learned to love myself.
Hmm.
And so the deeper I go in my spiritual practice of calming my nervous system and getting grounded and learning to love myself and all of my flaws and all of my imperfections, the deeper I love others and then the more I'm able to accept and experience the love of God. And so I would say Like if it isn't love, it's not God. And if we're not loving ourselves, then my prayer is that we can find ways to start so that we can
Hmm.
start feeling that deep, infinite love of the divine.
I love it. I agree. Self love is the source of all of our other loves. So,
Yeah.
one
And it's
final
not
question.
selfish. It's not
No,
selfish.
it's
Like
not.
like I used
Mm-mm.
to think that was selfish. It's not.
It's
It's
needed.
beholding who we are as God's beloved.
Hmm. Totally. So, one last question. What does living beyond the shadow of doubt mean to you?
Well, I like living in the light. Like we as spiritual beings can live in the light, and that doesn't mean we know everything. That doesn't mean that we don't have doubt, but we can be out of the shadow of darkness and despair. Don't get me wrong, darkness and despair are important. They are necessary. We can't know light without the shadow, the darkness. It's all part of it. And I think for me, living beyond the shadow of a doubt is just like knowing that the darkness and despair don't last. Like there's always light, and I can always keep walking that spiritual path.
I love it. Well, Jenna, I like to give our listeners an opportunity to get to know you. Uh, and so I have a few for fun questions, and I'm
Yeah,
just
yeah.
looking for one word, two-word answers. So
Okay.
we'll just go through them really quickly. Um, Tell us your favorite book. Just
Ooh.
first thing that pops up.
To Kill a Mockingbird pops up first. Also
Awesome.
Harry Potter, also Lit by Mary Carr. I can't pick one.
Awesome. Are you an introvert or an extrovert?
Actually, an introvert. Everyone thinks I'm an extrovert, but I get my energy by myself.
And who's your favorite artist?
Ooh. Ah, it's so hard. I don't know. I'm really partial to Monet, but like oh, I love so much art.
Monet is a good one.
It's because I
And
went to see the water lilies in France, and after
yeah,
you're in that room where they're wrapped around you, it's just
yes,
like never the
it's
same. So
larger
my
than
life
life.
was changed.
I feel that. Yes, been there. Are you a night owl or a morning lark?
Okay, um, totally have a history of insomnia and being a night owl who likes to work through the night. I'm working on being a morning person. The military helps with that.
I'm sure it does. I love that you know your answers. Do you do still or carbonated water, or are you like a diet soda fan?
Still water with lemon or just plain.
And finally, the furthest place that you have traveled.
Ooh, the furthest. Oh goodness. I think Egypt is the
Nice.
furthest.
So you've seen all the hieroglyphics. That's very
Oh
cool.
yeah, yeah.
Well, Jenna, if folks wanted to reach out to you, to connect with
Yeah.
you, ask questions, what would be the easiest way for them to
Okay,
do
so
that?
my website is jennacarson.com and there's a contact me form. And then please check out my podcast with my co-host Sierra Larson. It's called Guiding Light,
Okay.
and I love it. We get to interview all these wellness specialists and talk about holistic health, spiritual, mental, physical. And oh yeah, we're also running a retreat for women, a wellness camp in May. So if you're interested in that, it's a women's wellness camp that I can share the link.
Yeah,
So
please do.
yeah. Oh, and on
I'm
Instagram. So I'm remembering all these places. Instagram, I've just recently opened up to the public. It's Jenna Carson Writes because I'm a writer. So Jenna Carson Writes. Please join me.
awesome. I will leave all of those links in the show notes.
Thank
Thank you
you.
so much, Jenna, for your time. It was lovely.
Thanks, Megan, for having me. Thanks for all your work and everything you do. And
You
to all
too.
your listeners, thanks for your time too.
Beyond the Shadow of Doubt podcast is a proud member of the Dialogue Podcast Network, which is part of the Dialogue Journal found at dialoguejournal.com. Founder Eugene England was a Mormon writer, teacher, and scholar who wrote, "My faith encourages my curiosity and awe. It thrusts me out into relationship with all creation and encourages me to enter into dialogue. My hope is that this podcast is an extension of that vision." Visit meganskidmorecoaching.com to find this podcast and additional free resources, including the link for a complimentary coaching session. Follow me on Facebook or Instagram for more, or to send me a DM. Help the podcast grow. Please follow, review, and share with a friend.